let's talk a little bit about one of the specific nuances to total unemployability being substantially gainful occupation. So according to the regulations, a veteran who is not capable of substantially gainful occupation is eligible to receive payment at the 100% rate because of total unemployability. However, within the regulation, it also qualifies that by saying that marginal employment will not be considered substantially gainful occupation. And there's a lot of gray area there as far as what that means. Within the regulation, it does specifically say that there is a financial threshold to it. So marginal employment will be considered working under the poverty level. And that's pretty much the only clear line there is there. So you can pull the employment records if there's a veteran who is working a few hours a week or just a little bit of time, and the VA has said, no, TDIU is off the table because of employment. You can pull the employment records and look just strictly at the finances and what the veteran is making and prove marginal that way. But there's also some ways to prove it when the veteran is working above that financial threshold. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when we talk about marginal unemployment, the courts have said that if it's marginal, it's not substantially gainful. And so that's really what we're going by. And VA kind of has two ways of looking at marginal employment. One is whether or not the veteran is making under the poverty threshold. And like you said, one of the easiest ways to prove that, pulling Social Security earnings records, taking a look and seeing where they stopped making any kind of substantial income or over that threshold. Now, for some veterans, they may be making over the poverty threshold, some substantially more, some just over. But that doesn't preclude marginal employment either, because VA also looks at whether a veteran is in a sheltered work environment. That's also considered marginal. So there are two ways to kind of prove that marginal employment if you are making over the threshold. One of the issues with the sheltered workplace or sheltered protected environment route to go is that we really don't have a definition of what a sheltered and protected work environment is. The courts have not been consistent on when they're granting or not granting based on certain types of situations. So one veteran can have the exact same situation as another. One may be granted, one may not. And so it's actually going up through the court system now on what is that definition of a sheltered or protected work environment. I know, with COVID and the pandemic, a lot of people's work environments changed. And so working from home before may have been an accommodation given, but now it's given to so many people, it's so much harder to prove. But it doesn't mean that if you're making over the poverty threshold, that you still may not be entitled to those TDIU benefits. One of the other things just to consider when it does come to that protected and sheltered work environment is that once TDIU is granted, even on those grounds, VA each year will pull a Social Security report. And if it shows that you're making over the poverty threshold, they're going to send you a letter. And that letter is usually, we need some financial information, you're making over the threshold, and if you are actually making over, they will send out a proposal to reduce your benefits and to sever your unemployability, even if it's granted by the board or the regional office based on a sheltered and protected work environment. I recently had that happen with one of my vets where the board granted under a protected work environment. He got his Social Security earnings pulled. They sent a letter. We drafted a letter, sent it in, and said, hey, he was granted, nothing in his working environment has changed. He's not making any more money. It's the exact same situation, and VA still severed. And so right now, he's not receiving those unemployment benefits. He's only getting his normal compensation for his rating, and we're trying to fight it. And there's a gap in the money that he's due. Yes, he will get that retro when we reinstate it, but these are definitely challenges and things to consider because VA does get this wrong all the time.
Yeah, that's something that's really important to actually make veterans aware of in the context of, yes, so maybe you've already overcome that hurdle and proven that the employment that you're still doing is marginal. Know that the VA is going to keep reaching out to you and they're going to keep requiring you almost to prove it all over again. So don't fall back and become complacent in thinking that there is nothing else that you're going to have to do in order to keep those benefits, because there is. And as Ursula was just pointing out, it could result in having your benefits severed if you're not paying attention to that and providing the information that the VA is looking for in order for you to be able to keep it.
And I do think that once the cases kind of, make it through the court system and back down, and we actually have a definition of what that is, and we can take it and look at it and apply that to our vet circumstances, it's going to make it much easier to know which of these are actually marginal employment through a sheltered workshop or protected work environment.